What's going on YouTube today? The day has come to go ahead and rip this apart and do a head gasket. So you guys been following, I've been on the fence about a head gasket on the car. Decided to take it a dig or die the way it was. And I'm still getting pretty good coolant pressures, even just driving normal. It does recover, it doesn't get hot. But I just feel like under lots of boost, I do see a pretty good increase on coolant pressures. Also on like my launch limiter and stuff, I'm getting a lot of like fluctuations and stuff. So I'm just gonna do a head gasket. One, just to have a fresh gasket for the new season, and two, to kind of compare data. So once I do the new head gasket, drive it around, see what coolant pressure is. Obviously it's gonna be a good, fresh, sealed head gasket, and just kind of see where the coolant pressure is sitting. And then, run my 85 street, 25, 28 pounds, and just see where it goes. If it is climbing to where I'm seeing now, then I know that's just kind of the norm. But I feel like last year it didn't climb as much as it is now. So we're gonna do a head gasket. It's cheap, it's not that hard to do a head gasket. So this video, I'm gonna really video a lot to show you guys how to do the head gasket, the easiest way that I've found on a turbo car to get the head off. And so we'll take you through the steps and see how this goes. Pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna time lapse some of the easy stuff, but all the hot side turbo stuff has to come off. All the cold side stuff has to come off. So that'll be the first thing. We're gonna get all this off, and then we'll go ahead and start focusing on what we gotta do for the head removal. So what do we have done so far? Turbo kit's off, cold side charge piping's off. I went ahead and undid fuel lines and hoses. If you guys have any catch cans, get all that stuff out of the way. So next is really just starting to disconnect everything we need to disconnect. So what I do is I take the head off with the intake manifold attached. Because the only thing you have to take off is if you still have the support mount underneath the intake manifold, you gotta take that bolt off, undo your throttle cable, and then you gotta undo the water supply that bolts to the back of the head. If you can get to those two 10mm bolts in the back of the head, it's a breeze, it comes right off. It's a lot easier than taking all the intake manifold bolts off. So I just take the whole head off with the intake. I found it faster and easier that way. So again, really the hard part here is just disconnecting all your sensors to your intake, fuel injectors, all that. I do take the alternator off so I can get to those back bolts. It's a lot easier. The alternator is just 2 bolts and you just got to undo your main wire there and we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead, do the alternator next, loosen the belt up, alternator, get the back coolant hose off, and then I'll start working on all the sensors, injectors, and all that. And then we'll get into underneath the valve. All right, so we got most of the stuff out that we need to get out. So we're gonna start on valve cover. Also remember guys, back here, once you get the hose off, there is a coolant sensor back there you need to unhook. It's covered in rubber. There's a rubber sleeve on it. Make sure you unhook that. Make sure you unhook your cam sensors. And then we're gonna go ahead and start on the valve cover removal. Pretty easy removal. I use my ratchet gun for speed.
I get the right guy here. And pretty easy stuff. So, first we're going to take the
valve cover is off, guys. Pretty easy stuff. So what we're going to do now is the cam tower is going to have to come off. What I do is I always go top dead center and keep it there. It's just easier to take the cam caps off top dead center. Make sure you guys take your VTEC solenoid if you have one, and your tensioner off before you start doing any of the unbolting. Also, make sure you guys go in order. Start on your outside bolts and work your way inwards. That way you has the least amount of stress on the cam caps. Cam caps off. It's pretty self-explanatory. Go from the sides, follow the manual. The manual tells you what to, the order in which to go. Make sure it's top dead center. Pull the cams, and then you pull the bottom cap, and you're good to go. Make sure you keep your caps in order. Next we're gonna get the idler off. It's pretty easy to do. Breaker loose. They are important, so make sure you follow the manual. Make sure you follow all your torque specs and all that stuff. So you're gonna pull the bolt out. Remember, there's gonna be those two washers, so make sure that those don't go anywhere. Pull the chain back, and then just pull this straight up. And then you can drop the chain. The chain's just gonna land, and it'll be fine where it's at. And then just take your idler and set that aside. It's pretty easy. Make sure you check all your O-rings and stuff. So, make sure we check this. O-ring looks good. Definitely can reuse that, especially if it's not leaking. And then anytime you're taking stuff off, always inspect the metal. Make sure everything's looking happy, nothing's mad, so on and so forth. So that all looks good over there. So next, we're gonna start taking the head studs off, and that is a lot of fun. Let me tell you, it's a lot of fun. But we're gonna go ahead. They are 14s, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, they are 14s.
So we're gonna start on one end here. Move it over. And you're going to zigzag back and forth. You're also making sure that they all feel good, but these all have similar pressure there, which they do. I'll place them all in here. Now if you don't get the washers right away, that's fine. I usually go back in there with these studs. I'm just going to run them all off first.
So, I'm going to move the camera here because I normally get up all in here to get the head off. It's just easier to break it loose. All right, we're loose. It's off. Head gasket was stuck on a dowel. We'll go ahead and clean the head gasket up, check that out. And also we can check out what's going on inside of here, which is nice. Everything looks good. Have a gander. So it all looks pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and inspect a little more, and we'll check out the head gasket, see if we can see if there's any leakage. All right, well, I don't really see any obvious head gasket issues. Typically what you'll see is if you'll split the head gasket apart, you can look down at the black white and rubber and you'll see it washed away if you do have a serious head gasket leak. And I don't really see anything. I mean, I see nothing from a coolant area up. So head gasket may have been fine. I didn't look at the other side of the head yet. I'm gonna go ahead and flip that over and drain the oil out and check out the other side of the head. So the cylinder walls look absolutely perfect. There is nothing wrong with them. They look amazing. Number 2 has a little scrape on it, and I don't know if it could possibly be some type of shaving from something, but there's a very fine little scratch, but it's nothing that's gonna affect anything major. But yeah, everything looks really good. So I've just been working on cleaning up our steel ring, getting all the vite and rubber off, carburetor cleaner with a razor blade, scrape and rags. You gotta get the surface extremely clean before the head gasket goes on. So pretty much we are ready to throw a new head gasket on at this point. Still not really sure why I'm getting valve cover leakage on the number 4 again. It might be from when I launched the car. Probably a lot of the oil that's in the valve cover can slosh back and completely saturate the valve cover gasket seal, and maybe under high levels of boost I'm getting a little bit of leakage, but that's the only thing I can really think of for that. If anybody else has any ideas, let me know in the comments. But yeah, so we're really close to throwing a new head gasket on. We just gotta clean some stuff up. All right, guys. Well, we are done for today. I'm waiting on a head gasket. I got my local Honda dealer getting me a head gasket. I was this close to putting on a Cometic 50,000 gasket. And since I am going to the new head studs from Jeremy, I didn't want to change too many things. And then if I do have a head gasket problem, then I'm going to say, well, is it the studs or is it the Cometic head gasket? So we know that the OEM holds up really well. I was on that OEM head gasket all year with the L19 half-inch studs. So, and I don't know if I had a head gasket leak, to be totally honest with you. The head gasket looks fine. I did have some coolant pressures that got pretty high, but talking to other guys that run high boost said it's totally normal. So I don't really know. But I just wanted to replace it just to know that I had a nice warm and fuzzy on a head gasket for the new season next year. So we're gonna put an OEM head gasket on it, and I'm gonna put Jeremy Allen's new head studs, which are right here. They're a really nice piece. Full, they're not neck down at all. They're a full 11 millimeter. So they're a hair smaller than a half-inch, but they're really, really nice looking stud. So the other ones weren't quite half-inch either. So yeah, we're talking, let me do a quick measurement here. These are 11.4 millimeter. And I believe these came up to like an 11.6 or 11.7. So they're just slightly smaller than the L19s, but you do not have to drill your head out for these new studs. Jeremy said that they are just as strong as H625, if not stronger. They don't brittle up like L19 does, and that's what I have as L19. So you can play with them with your hands. They're not going to fall apart. He says they'll last longer. He says they're a much stronger stud. So we're going to give them a shot. I don't know if there's anybody out there running these yet on big boost cars, but we're going to give them a shot. We're going to see how they do. Everything else looks really good. Cams look good. Cylinder walls look good. Rockers look good. I got nothing, no major problems happening right now. So, I mean, I already knew that we had good compression. Everything looked good. So we are good to go. But that is how to take a head off, guys. It's not really hard. Some of the main things you need to remember is you have your thermostat sensor guy on the back side. You have your thermostat, or not your thermostat, but you have your water feed goes to the back of the head. You're gonna have your ground stud on the back here. You gotta get that off. And then for you guys that didn't take off that guy right there, and then these guys right here, there's two support mounts that go down to the lower side of a bracket. I don't run those anymore, I leave them off, but you wanna make sure you get those off as well. And really that's it on the back side that you gotta worry about. Of course, you know, got some of your hoses, your vac lines. If you still have your evap system, of course, unhook your hose, but that's really the only thing. Everything's kind of over here that you need to make sure you get a hold of. Everything else is pretty simple. Of course, you know, your fuel line and stuff needs to come off, and all your sensors, of course. Also, most of the time you're gonna have your cam sensor bracket hooked to that. So usually this guy is going to be up here like this. So you gotta make sure you get that, or you'll take that with the head when you take it off. As you can see here, guys, I do have a lot of room. So mainly I smash these wires out of the way, so that way there's plenty of room for the intake manifold to come down, and that way everything's good to go. So for me, it's a lot easier to just pull it with the head or the intake manifold on, and there's plenty of room to get the head back on. Again, we are gonna have to put the head on before the studs. So we'll put our dowels in here and here. Head gasket will go down, head will lay down on the dowels, and then we'll slide. And of course you'll have your RTV over there, your Honda Bond. Then we'll slide our studs in one at a time and tighten everything down. It's just easier that way. And for me, with the glide swap, my motor's tilted a little bit more back than normal. It also sits back a little bit more than normal. So it's really hard to get past the firewall and everything if I had the studs on. So it's just a little bit easier to do that. I also just texted Jeremy, and I told him about the valve cover seal. I asked him, you know, if you guys have any issues with that, with the drag cars. And he said they've tried all the aftermarket ones and they always seem to leak. So he suggested just go out and get a OEM Honda valve cover gasket and spark plug hole gasket. So we're just gonna go back to OEM on that. These are a cheaper Rock Auto deal that I got. The valve cover gasket itself seems to seal fine. It's just my one spark plug that's not sealing. So we're gonna go ahead and throw OEM back on that, see if that'll seal it up. But that's not gonna be till tomorrow. So tomorrow will be install, getting up in the morning. I'm gonna run down to the Honda dealership, get my head gasket. I think he's also gonna get me the valve cover gasket. And then we'll be back on, slapping the head back on, hopefully get her running. And if it's not too crappy out, hopefully we can take it out, see what our new wastegate springs are giving us on the boost, and see what coolant pressures look like. But that'll be tomorrow, guys. That's gonna do it for today. Please comment, like, and subscribe if you like what you're watching. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. See you.